Larry Atlas is a great friend of mine. And in my life, and I really mean this, there's three things that are most important, and they kind of spin around on a wheel. My friends, my family, and Millbrook School. For me, that's where I derive all meaning. And I was thinking about how I've met friends in my life, and many of my friends are results of proximity. Kids I grew up with in my neighborhood. Someone I just randomly sat next to in school. My third form year in prom, my roommate, and the boy across the hall. When I went off to Middlebury College, I played hockey and baseball there. Spent a lot of time with those teams in locker rooms. And my best friends are all from my freshman hall. Not one of them is a hockey or baseball player. They're all because we were randomly placed. And so when Aaron and I, we were married in 2010. We were married in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we met. And we moved back to Millbrook. For me, it was back to Millbrook. For Erin, she had never stepped foot in the Northeast. And we moved into a duplex on Fraley Hill Road where the Feidelvards and the Bracidi Martins lived. And we shared a wall with Ann Matthews, the school counselor, and her husband, this guy, Larry Atlas. And we lived there, I think, for maybe 5 or 6 years. So we moved here as newlyweds, and Larry and Ann, over time, we'd see each other when we'd walk out to the cars, or we'd walk up to campus, or we'd see each other in the yards. And we just started talking about anything and everything. And then we'd have dinner dates, and we'd make them dinner, and they'd make us dinner. Larry, I just asked him, he said, please don't share my age. So I won't share his age, but I'll say he's 30 years my senior. And it's a hard thing to think about for a lot of you in the age, like in this room. Like, could you end up with a great friend who right now is 45, 48? And we did. I'm a great friend. And maybe an unlikely pair. But over time, through our conversations at the cars, or in the backyard, or over dinner, I started to learn really 2 things about Larry that I want you to know. And this is why I asked him to close the day on curiosity. The first is, I thought he was kind of like the Dos Equis man. If you know that ad or that commercial, he's the most interesting man in the world. And the reason the Dos Equis man is the most interesting man in the world is because he's the most interested. He's curious about everything and anything, and he's lived many, many lives. And so, through conversation, Larry would say things just sort of casually, like, oh yeah, when I was in the Army. You were in the Army, okay. Oh yeah, when I wrote the screenplay for Sleepless in Seattle. Oh, you wrote that? Oh yeah, when I was acting in that thing with Al Pacino. Or when I was, I'm trying out for Stanley in Streetcar Named Desire, but Marlon Brando beat me. When I opened this tech company when tech really wasn't a thing. When I published this novel. Oh, when I was on a skydiving jump team for 2 years. Oh, now, yeah, I'm a nurse practitioner. He's lived so many lives that I've always found him to be one of the most curious human beings that I've ever met. And then the second reason I asked him to be here is Aaron and I moved here as newlyweds. And in friendship and in family and in Millbrook School, there's nothing more important in my mind than love and being able to share a life with someone. And we watched Ann and Larry and their relationship very closely. And Larry looks at Ann every day like he's got a 6th grade crush on a girl. And so he's modeled something for me that, that is valued but beyond all other things. So, that's my intro. I'll turn things over. He's going to share a few thoughts on curiosity, and I know you'll enjoy. Alumni, you know your assignment. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Atlas.
Well, you just got a really great lesson that there are some introductions that are actually impossible to follow. Impossible. But thank you, John. That's right. Let me just first say what a pleasure it is to be here. As Mr. Downs indicated, Anne, my wife, was here as the Director of Counseling for 21 years. I was here for 6 years, a scant 6 years, as the main medical person here. And as you heard, we lived on campus, and that period was such a wonderful period of time for us. And we treasure it. And we treasure being part of the Millbrook family. And to see all these graduates here today come from all over the country to be here. It's not only inspiring, but it kind of reminds me that once you've been a part of the Millbrook family, you're always a part of the Millbrook family, which is kind of a great thing to know. I also want to thank you all for having me here to speak about curiosity. John, thank you for the assignment. I have to admit that in thinking about it over the past week or two, what I might say, I realized that I had kind of made some misjudgments about what was kind of behind doing those things that John mentioned that you see up there, some of them. I look at that list, and my first thought is, how did that happen? How did I do all that? And I realized that I don't think I fully understood the answer to that question until recently. Even in childhood, I was kind of a dreamy kid. I don't imagine this is unusual. Probably many of you felt that way. I was kind of dreamy and restless and wanted to do different things. So I'm talking about when I was little, like 8, 10, that age. And I was going to do this, I was going to study that, I'm going to do this project. When I grow up, I'm going to do this and that. And even going on into high school, kind of in that era, that was still kind of my modus. And enough so that I think my parents kind of became a little bit concerned at times. And I remember my dad saying to me, I think I remember this too vividly, he was saying things to me like, when are you going to buckle down? That was one of his favorite phrases. When things would get a little hot, he would say, you're just trying to be a big shot. Which I think is kind of not a great thing to say to a kid. Even though my dad was a great guy and a great dad, but I kind of wish he hadn't said that to me. But even later, even after I left home, even after I was out in the world, I did struggle with this question, why was I doing all these things? And I confess, I think my motivations were diverse and were kind of getting in my way in a lot of ways. Because what was very much in my mind was I wanted to be famous. I wanted people to think I was really smart. I wanted people to think I was really talented. I wanted to win prizes, all this stuff. These are, by the way, in my view, less than admirable motivations, but they were there. I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to prove myself to myself. I wanted to prove myself to my parents, to my friends, to the voices of my parents that were in my head and that kind of stayed with me and that may stay with most of us throughout our lives. Even later, even into my 20s and 30s, I got a little more, I think, gentle, with myself, a little more approving, a little less self-critical about all those motivations. Even then, I thought, well, I'm doing these things just because I don't like being bored. Well, nobody likes being bored, right? And then I would say, oh, you know what, I love adventure. I like adventure. That's why I'm doing these things. And indeed, a lot of the stuff that I did was an adventure. It's an adventure to jump out of an airplane. There's no question. It's an adventure to captain a skydiving team. It's an adventure to walk out in front of a paying audience in a play. It's incredible. It's an adventure to stand up in front of a film crew with 100 people there to take your picture. It's an adventure to do all this. It's an adventure to change careers in midlife and start businesses and play with technology. All of it was an adventure. But in thinking about what I would say today, I realized it was actually more than that. It was better than that. It was actually curiosity that was driving me. To the extent I was having adventures, they were adventures in curiosity. So that when I first went to college after high school, I wasn't doing well. I wasn't doing well. I thought, what if I drop out and join the Army? See if the Army can make a man out of me, whatever that meant, whatever it means now. Once I was in the Army, what would it be like to be a drill sergeant, one of those guys that scared me so much when I was in basic training? Or when I got out of the Army, out of this like really male-centric environment that was the Army, what would it be like to be one of the first 6 guys at a women's college? What would it be like once I was there, and because there were no men to act in the plays that my classmates were writing, what would it be like to actually act in their plays? It wasn't a lot of competition, there were only 200 guys. And once I did that, what would it be like to actually write one of those plays? And that was a life-changing event for me. At graduation, and I shudder to remember that I actually did this, and I don't recommend it to anybody. I actually turned down admission to medical school. There's a med student here, right? You're a med student. I'm sorry. I turned down admission to medical school not once but twice, 2 years in a row, and decided to go to New York City, essentially penniless, to make a career in the theater. What would it be like later in life to start businesses? What would it be like to invent technologies? What would it be like to teach in colleges? I did all those things. I realized in thinking about it now that it was curiosity, not a love of adventure, not a desire to be famous, not any of that stuff. It was curiosity that was driving me to do those things. It was curiosity in a really concrete sense that created the story of my life. And those lines, in my resume, so to speak, that's not the story of my life. I also thought this in the last week or two. The story of a person's life is not in their resume, it's between the lines of their resume. It's the people that you meet. It's the places you go. It's the restaurants you eat in. It's the things you discover when you work. It's the collaborations that you have. All that is the story of your life. I realize now, more fully, written by one's curiosity. So that's kind of a new thought for me. It really is. Now, curiosity has played another role in my life, which I've known about for decades, particularly in my creative life, my work life, and I like to share a story to illustrate that. This is what I would call a crucible experience in my life. And that's probably, my guess is a lot of you have heard that term, crucible experience. If you haven't heard it, I'll try to define it. I'll probably define it really badly. But my understanding of a crucible experience is an event that changes your life. Not just in the moment, but forever after. So here's mine. So I was living in New York City. I was in my 20s. I was making a living as an actor. Now, I wasn't a very good actor. I wasn't a supremely talented actor, far from it. But because of the way I looked, and probably still look, I could play killers. And I could play rapists, and I could play martyrs, I could play thugs. Primarily in front of the camera. I was doing okay. I was making a living, which is good for an actor. If an actor can make a living, that's all right. I was sort of making a living. I could pay my rent, I could buy groceries most of the time. But what I really wanted to do was write plays. That's the thing I had done in college. That's the thing I loved. That's the thing that had brought me to New York. And in fact, I had written 3 plays. One of which was actually produced in New York, off Broadway, at a place called the Capicolo Theater, which no longer exists. But I felt I wasn't really doing my best work. That all those things I described to you a minute ago about wanting to be famous and wanting people to think I was so brilliant and wanting to impress people, and all of that was getting in the way of my doing my best work. So on this occasion, I was, as we used to say in the business, I know people still say this, I was between jobs, meaning I was unemployed. And when I was unemployed as an actor, what I would do is I would go to my agent's office and I would sit there hoping or imagining the phone was going to ring with a call from me to go out for an audition, or maybe even go to work, get a job, and which, so far as I remember, never happened. Never got a job that way. And I was doing what I always did. I was drinking a cup of coffee. I was probably smoking a cigarette, I'm embarrassed to admit, long time ago. And I was reading the New York Times. That's what I did. And on this particular day, I came upon an article in the New York Times. Now, spoiler alert here, this is not a happy story. This is a sad story, and it's a true story, and it's this. It's a story about a young man living in the Midwest in Indiana, separated from his wife, taking care of their 18-month-old little boy. And this young man had beaten up the little boy. And the little boy was in a coma, in an ICU, on a ventilator. The doctors taking care of him had basically declared him brain dead, and they and the state wanted to remove the little boy from the ventilator. And the father sued to prevent the doctors and the state from doing that. And in this article, the father's lawyer said, acknowledged that the widespread suspicion that the father had filed this lawsuit to avoid a charge of murder. That once the little boy was gone, buried, that the state would in all likelihood charge him with some murder, manslaughter, or something. And that the father was trying to delay or avoid that. But in this article, the lawyer said, and I still remember his exact words all these years later, quote, "I truly believe this is a case of a father looking out for the welfare of his child." And in the next moment, sitting there in my agent's office, I thought to myself, what if that were true? What if? How could that be true? And in the next moment, I thought to myself, I guess I'll have to write a play to answer that question. I told my agent. I went home. I climbed up the 6 flights to my tenement, walk up on East 10th Street in East Village, far less Tony address in those days than it is today. And I wrote the play. And I didn't think about whether it was going to make me famous or make me rich or impress people. I didn't think about any of that. I just thought about answering that what if question. And that play was a big hit in regional theater. And then, I think it's fair to say, it was the event of the New York theatrical season off Broadway in New York. And then we recast it with a movie star and took it to Broadway, and that wasn't a happy experience. But it changed my life. It gave me credibility as a playwright so that I could get my plays produced after that. It opened up the doors for me in Hollywood so I could actually make some real money for the first time. And work at all these studios and hang out with movie stars and have, stay in great hotels, ride around limousine, all that stuff, which was fun, which was great. But far more important than that, it taught me the power of that question. What if? What if? And that if I ignored all that other stuff, all those other motives and desires for fame and money and blah, 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 all that stuff, and focused on that creative question, what if, I would do my best work. And that was true not just in conceiving things that you might want to write about. It was also true sort of day to day, moment to moment. What if I follow this word with this word? Or no, what if I follow it with this word? Or what if I follow this sentence with this sentence? Or if I was writing a screenplay, what if I follow this image with this image? No, what if it's this image, and what if I put dialogue under it? No, we'll do that. What if there's another image and it's of my character's hand? No, what if, I'm really not making this up, this is the way it sort of works. What if instead of that, we go to the coffee cup on the table and we see the character's hand come into frame? What if his hand is trembling? So that every part of the creative process was happening because of curiosity, because of those kinds of what-if questions, one after the other. And this was true not just in creative writing, not just writing a novel or a screenplay or a play, but I find it's also true in like business. So people once came to me and said, can we think of a way that we could browse video the way you can browse websites? And the problem was videos go from A to B, they go A to B and then they stop. And well, websites exist forever, right? You can always click out of a website, but how do you click out of a video that goes from A to B and stops? And I said, well, what if it doesn't stop? And we kind of said, well, how do you make a video that doesn't stop? And we actually answered that question. We made a movie, we patented it, it's out in the world. Even now, essentially practicing medicine, I find myself doing that all the time. If I think about, healthcare is in such bad shape, and there's a terrible nursing shortage, and billing is a nightmare. And families are difficult. If I think about all that stuff, I don't do my best work. If I think about the patient and I ask these same kinds of questions, what if this CAT scan doesn't agree with these lab results that I got? What if my presumptive diagnosis is wrong? What if something else is going on with my patient? What if I put my stethoscope on his chest and I hear something that doesn't agree with the chest x-ray that I got? What if? So to this day, I'm entranced by the idea that asking those kinds of questions, satisfying your curiosity, is what allows me, and I think most people, to do our best and most productive work. Now, I want to add a note of caution. I don't think this rises to the level of a warning, but I think I want to say that doing this, for me anyway, in my experience, doesn't guarantee success. When I think about success, probably like most people, I think about money. I think about fame, I think about articles in the newspaper, I think about, social media mentions and all of that stuff. But it seems to me that when you do your best work, when you do this, when you follow your curiosity, when you really answer those questions, you guarantee yourself satisfaction. You can't control the marketplace. You can't control how people will react to what you invented or created. All you can control is what you do. That play that I described to you a minute ago, that play, 95% of the audience loved it. They cried, they came up to me and thanked me. 5% of the audience hated me. How could you write a play about a child abuser? Critics in the regional theater loved it. Critics who saw it off Broadway loved it. 2 or 3 critics who saw it on Broadway hated it and killed it. That's life. It just happens. You can't control any of that. All you can do is, to use a cliche, follow your curiosity and go where it takes you. And then everything else is in the lap of the gods, but you'll have the satisfaction of having done your best work, having had a lot of fun, having seen a lot of the world. So that's a thank you again for the chance to be here, and I wish you all well on your journeys of curiosity. I hope you have a lot of good games.
Okay, thank you, Larry. I want to invite alumni, if the spirit moves you, one last thought. I'm going to do the teacher thing, where I wait. Royce.
Hello, everyone. I originally wanted to ask Larry a few questions because that is crazy and amazing at the same time. I'll be short. Some of you may have heard me say this before, but I wanted to say something about curiosity. I spend a lot of my time on photo shoots and concepting what it is I'm going to do, building out a plan. But what I've learned about curiosity is that if you stay curious, you can have a plan, but if you stay curious as well, you usually end up finding those little nuanced moments because you're present as well. So have a plan, but stay curious as well. Don't be locked into your plan so much that you don't realize what's right in front of you, because some of your best ideas will come up on the fly and pop up in a moment. So stay curious.
Hey everybody, Jim Egan, Dad Sarah. Sorry, Sarah. I would say, a lot has been said, but I think curiosity is greater than or equal to capacity to know. And I don't think you can know much without curiosity. And something that I learned here, and I talked about it today, so people have heard me say this, I think finding a way to say yes is much more important than finding a way to say no. You read this right online, you've got to cut back, say no, take care of yourself. No, I think that's all true. Finding a way to say yes to ideas, to adventures, and to people can really change your life, most of the time for the better. So find a way to say yes.
Started with you, we end with you.
Can I do it from my seat?
Yes.
Yeah. I think I know, this is great. I'm loving this. Stay kind. Be kind to everyone that you meet. And be curious about their experience. You never know what you can learn from the person that's sitting across from you. And let that curiosity in your fellow human fuel you and inspire you.
That's that word.
Tom and Shonda here. Thank you guys for having me. I'll keep mine pretty short and sweet. Don't be afraid to fail. Some of us here, might not want to do something because we might potentially fail. But through that journey, I've always believed that there's success. So I would say definitely don't be afraid to try things.
Hi everyone, my name's Nick, and over the past 10 years I've probably interviewed a few hundred people for jobs, both at my current company and my last company, and curiosity is always the one thing that I'm looking for the most when I interview people. And the interview question that I ask them is, tell me about your company, but a job at your company that's not yours. So if you work in accounting, tell me about the marketing department. Or if you work in sales, tell me how they manage operations at your company. And I find that people that can answer those questions are naturally curious, and they're looking beyond their sort of narrow scope. And those are the people that I like to hire that come to work for us. And so I would encourage you all to get really good at what you're doing, but also try to spend a little time to look a little bit broader and try to understand the broader scope, and you never know what you'll find.
James, when Mr. Downs brought up that we have this opportunity, immediately my mind clicked out a clever, profound phrase that I have not heard before, but it might exist, which is trying to be the cleverest guy in the room. Curiosity killed the cat, but the cat also has 9 lives, so might as well use some of them being curious. There you go. I had to say it, that's how it happened.
Do they have any questions for us that they couldn't ask? Do they have any questions for us?
Hi, I'm C. For me, curiosity is what gave me the energy and resources to pivot when I feel like I failed. I didn't actually get into Millbrook. I didn't get into the college I wanted. The job I thought was my dream job wasn't it. Business idea I tried. I failed all 3 times, but after all of that, I'm still doing great. I'm living a happy life, and I'm excited to see where everything takes me to. And thank you for letting me be a part of the Millbrook community.
We good? All right, so one last round of applause for our